breaking story hook. Late last night, shattering the stillness of the night sky above the Black Sea, massive explosions ripped through the peninsula of Crimea after an assault launched just after midnight, shocking the region and sending plumes of smoke into the air. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Battle War Conflict channel. Please subscribe and like my videos. The exterior. In the darkness of the early hours, the first shockwaves came from the occupied peninsula of Crimea, where military and fuel infrastructure installations were targeted by a coordinated midnight assault. From the air and sea approaches, long-range missiles and drones converged on strategic sites, catching many by surprise. Massive blasts erupted at key facilities, illuminating the night with orange flames, black smoke towering into the sky, and debris scattered across adjoining transport and supply routes. The beachfront and port zones, normally quiet at that hour, suddenly became scenes of high alert, with emergency sirens, searchlights sweeping the sky, and naval craft repositioning. On the shoreline, civilians awakened by thunderous booms witnessed columns of smoke drifting over the water, while coastal installations shut down operations. The visual contrast was stark. Quiet summer resort town facades now overshadowed by gaping craters, wreckage of logistic vehicles, and stalled tanker railcars. Transportation arteries linking the peninsula to mainland supply lines were impacted, as rail crossings and road bridges near the target sites were closed or put under guard. The night assault not only struck at physical infrastructure, but also at the narrative of control and security over the region. Reaction from the defending forces included the activation of air defense systems, flares tracing missile paths, and anti-drone nets thrown into the sky. The sheer audacity of striking after midnight, when vigilance is lower, underscores the evolving contours of modern warfare: precision strikes, surprise timing, and deep logistics disruption. For the exterior environment, the typical military zone around the Black Sea littoral, often dotted with storage tanks, air defense radars, helicopter pads, and naval loading facilities, all became targets. The visible message: even heavily guarded zones in occupied territory remain vulnerable, and the strike at midnight magnifies that vulnerability in the public mind. The smoke, the fire, the collapsed infrastructure, all playing into a dramatic spectacle that signals both physical damage and psychological impact. Interior, moving inside the heart of the affected installations, the assault opened ruptures in zones previously considered secure. Imagine the control rooms of fuel storage terminals deep beneath overhead gantries, where pipelines snake along these hubs were suddenly transformed into chaotic scenes. Inside the offices, consoles flickered as power fluctuated, alarms blared, and personnel scrambled to respond. In storage depots, large fuel tanks blew outwards, fireballs coursed through connected piping, and ventilation shafts belched thick black smoke into enclosed spaces. In the logistics, hangars where helicopters or UAV might typically be maintained or prepped, the mid-night raid rendered equipment disabled, wrecked, or burnt. Interiors of hardened bunkers and radar sites at the fringe of the military complex were breached or forced to initiate rapid shutdowns as shockwaves shook walls, windows shattered, and heating/cooling systems failed. Staff had to enact emergency protocols, sealing rooms, isolating fuel lines, activating fire suppression systems, all within seconds of the strikes. Communications rooms, normally the nerve centers linking the coastal installation to mainland command, were disrupted by power surges and electromagnetic disturbances triggered by the blasts or munitions. Back office spaces, where logistic planning was done, were thrown into darkness, staff evacuated, while adjacent corridors filled with smoke as sprinklers activated or secondary fires erupted. The psychological effect inside was as fierce as the physical. Personnel accustomed to routine night shifts in secure zones now found themselves reacting to alarm codes, coordinating damage evaluation, redirecting supply missions, and trying to prevent further escalation. Portable radios crackled with new orders, while drones or UAV buzzed overhead. Inside, the sense of containment was lost. In the aftermath, interior spaces that once buzzed with low-tempo logistics turned into scenes of damage control, high alert, and improvisation. The command centers, once designed to withstand attack, had to operate with reduced power, limited visibility, and smoke-filled corridors. Backup generators kicked in, emergency lights flickered, engineers scrambled to isolate ruptured pipelines, firefighters fought inside covered zones where visibility dropped to meters. The sheer cost of interior disruption is often invisible in news bulletins, but central in operational terms: damaged wiring, compromised control panels, soot, covered surfaces, contaminated fuel supplies, burnt-out equipment, and degraded readiness. For every crater outside, there's an interior room now out of service, perhaps permanently. In strategic terms, the interior damage could mean weeks of downtime, redirection of logistics, increased risk of secondary accidents, and the loss of configured assets. The assault has revealed that even deeply entrenched facilities, fuel hubs, radar bunkers, helicopter maintenance spaces are not immune to the long arm of precision strike. The silence inside those corridors at dawn, the smell of burnt wiring, the absence of normal night shift routines, all combine into a story of disruption. Performance from the attacking side, the performance of the mission appears methodical and effective. They achieved surprise, delivered multiple vector strikes, aircraft, launched munitions, drones, long-range missiles, and hit multiple targets across the occupied territory. The coordination appears to have included air defense suppression so that some missiles penetrated, synchronized timing just after midnight when defender alertness is lower, and target prioritization: fuel hubs, airfields, logistical depots. The performance of the defending side is mixed. The installations were hit, implying gaps in surveillance, interception, or deterrence. But we should note that emergency response was triggered quickly, and some systems remained functional, suggesting resilience built into the installations. The ability of the assault to cross sea/air boundaries and hit both rail/road, supply nodes, and offshore terminals also indicates high operational sophistication. In terms of damage inflicted, the initial reports mention key hubs in the occupied city of Feodosia and adjacent oil terminal. While exact numbers of destroyed assets are still emerging, the visible damage: burning tanks, collapsed rail equipment, closed transport crossings, speaks to significant disruption. From a performance perspective, the attackers have leveraged a combination of long-range missiles, e.g., Ukrainian-made Flamingo and Bar systems, and drones to maximize impact with relatively low exposure. For defenders, the lesson is clear. Even hardened Russian/occupier infrastructure must adapt to multi-vector threats, and days when midnight rest offered respite may be over. The performance of the attack reflects modern war: precise, surprise-oriented logistics, focused not just large-scale battles, but damage to support systems. And from a strategic lens, if fuel supply, airfields, radar, and transport nodes begin to falter, the effect on front-line operations can be amplified. Safety features: though this is a conflict scenario rather than a consumer product, we can view safety features as the defensive and protective mechanisms built into the installations. The hardened bunkers, redundant supply lines, fire suppression systems in fuel terminals, air defense systems around the perimeter, and contingency evacuation plans for civilian areas. In this case, those safety features were tested. For example, the fuel hub near Feodosia reportedly had stand-by fire, suppression, and containment measures, but the overnight blast still caused mass fire, outbreak, and smoke plume. Air Defense systems intercepted some drones and weapons. Russia claimed to have shot down 7 drones over Crimea overnight. That shows the existence of active safety layers, but also indicates that these layers were either saturated or circumvented. The safety features in railway and transport hubs also include emergency shutdown protocols, CCTV surveillance, cybersecurity measures, and physical barricades, but the closure of railway crossings near impacted oil depots suggests either precaution or damage. From a civilian perspective, sensors and early warning sirens in resort zones and towns near military installations act as a safety buffer. The massive explosions caused evacuations and alerts, underlining that the safety net for neighboring cities is part of the holistic design. The key takeaway: safety features exist but are being stressed by evolved attack vectors. Redundancy, rapid response, layered defense, and resilience. i.e., backup systems, secure tunnels, alternative supply routes matter more than ever. Unique selling points. USPs. While we usually speak of USB in consumer terms, here we can treat the assault's elements and the defending installation's attributes as having unique features. From the attacker side, the USB lies in the precision of the strike, the midnight timing, the multi-vector tactic, missiles plus drones plus sea/air approach, targeting logistics/fuel hubs rather than just front-line armor, thereby hitting the supply heart. The defenders' USB include the resilience of their infrastructure, hardened bunkers, protective domes, redundancy in pipelines and transport links, proximity to the Black Sea giving strategic naval depth, and integration of local civilian infrastructure for evacuation or dual use. The installation's USP was that it was considered secure due to its location in reportedly occupied deep territory, giving a sense of impunity which this strike challenged. From the channel's perspective, your USB is bringing the story with on-site feel, detailed breakdown of what was hit, how it impacts broader war logistics, and what it means for both sides. Price. In this context of war, price refers to cost, both financial, strategic, and human. The financial price is enormous. Damage to fuel tanks, rail cars, helicopters, pipelines, repair costs, replacement of facilities, disruption of supply, increased insurance/risk premiums. The strategic price is the loss of perception of invulnerability for occupation forces, disruption in supply routes, increased vulnerability of front-line operations for the Russian-aligned side. The human price includes risk to civilians near the installations, staff evacuations, possible casualties among maintenance/logistics teams, and the long-time disruption for local populations. In short, the budget for recovery is high, and the opportunity cost: delay in operations, damage to reputation, increased security costs is substantial. For the attacking side, the cost includes risk of retaliation, exposure of launch assets, potential escalation, and the logistical and financial burden of missile/drone deployment, but the return in damage and message may justify it. The real price is measured not only in rubles/dollars, but in how much this one operation could shift momentum. Conclusion. In conclusion, last night's midnight assault on Crimea, targeting military, logistics and fuel infrastructure, reveals a pivotal evolution in modern conflict. The shift from solely front-line engagements to deep strike operations, focusing on the arteries that keep armies moving. For the first time, installations once considered secure behind enemy lines were caught off guard, showing that time, midnight, and vector sea/air matter as much as fire power. The defenders' advanced safety features were tested, and although some layers worked, the overall operation still caused significant disruption. The unique tactical approach of multi-vector drones, missiles, and surprise timing underscores the attacker's growing sophistication. The price of this strike: financial, strategic and human, is steep for both sides, but especially for those responsible for securing occupied territory and ensuring logistic continuity. For observers and analysts, the message is clear. Supply lines, fuel depots, logistics hubs are not safe just because they are behind the front. The next phase of warfare will see more such strikes, and installations will need to adapt accordingly. If you found this breakdown helpful, please hit subscribe and like. Share your thoughts below about what you think this means for the broader war, and don't forget to ring the bell icon so you miss our next update. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.